Hi there. Today we're going to be installing Zabbix on our CentOS 9 server and adding our previous ActiveMQ server as a Linux host for monitoring. So let's jump right in. The first thing I like to do is to edit my bash RC just to set a custom PS1. Just go to the bottom, add the line, and then source the file. And now we can see we're logged on as the root user on the Zabbix server. I use red for root users. Next thing we do is we do our updates, which I've already done. And we're going to go set the SA line next to permissive. So we go to where it says enforcing, and we replace that with permissive. If we do a get enforce, we'll see that it's still enforcing because we haven't done a restart. So we're going to do a set enforce to 0 so that we don't have to do the restart. Now we're going to be installing the repos for the Zabbix 7. It's a long-term support version. We can confirm that they installed correctly just by going to the yum.repos.d, and we can see the two Zabbix repos there. We're going to be using Postgres for our database for Zabbix. So here's where we install all the Zabbix tools for the server. We're also going to be installing Postgres server just from the CentOS repos, and at the moment that's Postgres 13. Then all we need to do is initialize the database. And if we go to the varlib PostgreSQL data folder, we should have all our items. We're going to start and enable Postgres, and then we're going to switch to the Postgres user. Once at our Postgres user, we're also going to set a bash RC file so that we can see when we're on as the root user and when we're on as a different user. We can see we're not the root user anymore, so it's blue instead of red. Log into Postgres, and we're going to create the database for Zabbix. We're going to have a user of Zabbix with a password of password, and it's going to be a super user. We're going to create the database called Zabbix, and the owner is going to be our Zabbix user. And then we're going to grant connect onto the Zabbix database to our Zabbix user. Now all we need to do is edit our HPA conf. We're going to change the method for authentication from ident to MD5. I've actually disabled the IPv6 interface on the server, but we're going to update it here for the IPv6 as well. And we can do a restart of Postgres or a reload, whichever you prefer. Go back to the root user, and here we're going to be importing the Zabbix Postgres data into our Zabbix database as the Zabbix user. Just put the password for the Zabbix user, which is password, and it creates all the items for us. Now we're going to edit the Zabbix server conf. We're going to look for the password. And over here, DB password, this is what we want to uncomment. And we're going to set the password for the Zabbix user, which was password. Then we can start all the Zabbix items and enable them for after reboots. Going to open port 8080 on the local firewall D. Sorry, not 8080, 80. And port 10050. That's what the Zabbix agent uses. And then we do a reload. Now if we do our firewall CMD list all, we should see the two ports open. Because we're going to be adding our other lab server, ActiveMQ, I'm just going to make sure that my hosts file has the correct information for my local lab. And so that I can ping activemq.local.lab, as that's the server that we'll be adding to the Zabbix for monitoring. Cool, that's responding. And then we should be able to browse our Zabbix server. It will be the hostname /Zabbix on HTTP because it's port 80. Can run through some quick setups. We're going to leave it as 0 because it's the default port. Database host, we change it to 127.0.0.1 as that is what was in our PGHBA conf. So if we go have a look here, the PGHBA conf, we allowed for the 127.0.0.1. So if we want to use localhost, we can always just add localhost here and then we can use that. I'm just going to add the 127.0.0.1. And the password for the Zabbix user, which is password. Zabbix server's name is zabbix.local.lab. I'm going to be using the DNS for it and then just set the time zone for your install. Yeah. And we should be able to log in with the admin user, that's default, and the password for it is going to be all lowercase Zabbix. And here we have our default dashboard. So the only server that we have at the moment is the local Zabbix server. We're going to be creating our other host for our ActiveMQ server, and that is activemq.local.lab. We'll use the same there. The template that we're going to attach to it, because it is a Linux server, is going to be in the operating system templates, and it's going to be Linux by the Zabbix agent. We're installing the Zabbix agent on that server. Interfaces is going to be from the agent, and we're going to use the activemq.local.lab DNS. You can put the IP as well. Under the IP is the 192.168.3.200 and add. Host group. Set it as a Linux server. Go. We have the activemq.local.lab server here. We go into one of the items and we try and force, for instance, the available memory as a test, this fails because we don't have the agent installed on the ActiveMQ server yet. So let's go install that on the ActiveMQ server. I've got my ActiveMQ server over here. We're going to download the agent for Zabbix. You can see that the repos were added correctly. And we're going to install the Zabbix agent. In the Zabbix conf, we search for the server here. And this points to the Zabbix server that we're reporting to, that the agent is going to report to. So this would be zabbix.local.lab in our instance. We also want to make sure that zabbix.local.lab responds correctly on the server, which it doesn't. So we're just going to go edit our hosts file, add server, zabbix.local.lab or Zabbix. And now we have it responding. Can restart the Zabbix agent, enable the Zabbix agent, and then on the server we also want to open up port 10050, as that's the port that the agent uses to communicate to the Zabbix server. Firewall cmd list all, we should be able to see that 10050 is open along with our previous ports for ActiveMQ. Let's go back to our Zabbix UI and retry this get value, and we see that it's giving a response of a value. So now we know that this agent is responding correctly. I think this is old. There we go, a refresh, and we can see that it is working because we did open the ports. So now we've installed Zabbix on our server, and we've added a Zabbix agent onto our existing server and added that server onto our monitoring for the host. Cool.